Michael Jackson walks into a private music salon in Chicago, carrying nothing but a worn leather notebook, when one of Europe's most celebrated concert pianists looks up from the keys, smiles coldly and says, "The entertainer wants to try the piano." What happens in the next 4 minutes doesn't just silence the room. It dismantles 40 years of assumptions about who gets to call themselves a musician and why. Chicago, September 1981, 2 years before Thriller, 2 years before the whole world knows his name the way it will. The salon belongs to a man named Roland Fischbeck, Austrian, 62 years old, hair the color of old piano wire. He's been performing since he was 9. Debuted at the Vienna Concert House at 19. Since then, he's played every serious concert hall in Europe and a good portion of those in America. He teaches masterclasses here in Chicago 3 weeks out of every year. The rest of the time he lives in Salzburg in a house that overlooks the river and smells like old wood and rosin. The salon itself is small, deliberately small. Fischbeck believes that music made in intimate rooms is more honest than music made in arenas. He has said this publicly many times. He has said other things publicly too about the degradation of popular culture, about rhythm and noise being mistaken for music, about what happens to a society when it stops teaching children to distinguish between entertainment and art. He is not shy about these opinions. He considers them a form of responsibility. Tonight the salon has 12 people in it. Fischbeck's current masterclass students. Young pianists from 4 different countries, ages ranging from 19 to 26. They've gathered for what Fischbeck calls an informal session, no pressure, no performance, just playing and listening, and talking about what they hear. Michael is here because of David. David Lane, a music journalist who has known Michael for 3 years and who convinced him, over 2 weeks of persistent calls, that meeting Fischbeck would be worth his time. David is one of maybe 4 people who knows about Michael's private musical life. The years of study that never appeared in any magazine. The thing Michael keeps separate from everything else. Michael almost didn't come. He almost called David that afternoon and said forget it. He knew what Fischbeck thought of pop music. He'd read the interviews. But he came anyway. He's not entirely sure why. Fischbeck sees Michael the moment he walks in. Recognizes him immediately. You'd have to be a hermit not to recognize him in 1981. And even hermits have radios. His expression doesn't change much. A small tightening around the eyes. The kind of look that has already made a judgment and is simply waiting for the judgment to be confirmed. He finishes the phrase he's playing, lifts his hands, and turns on the bench. "Mr. Jackson, not unfriendly, not friendly, calibrated. David told me you'd be joining us. Welcome." "Thank you for having me," Michael says. "Of course." Fischbeck's eyes move to the leather notebook. "What's that?" "Notes. Things I've been working on." "What kind of notes?" "Music. Chord structures mostly. Ideas I haven't finished yet." Fischbeck nods slowly. The way you nod when you're deciding whether something deserves a response. He turns back to his students. "We were just discussing Schubert's approach to resolution." The way he delays the expected arrival point to create emotional tension. He glances back at Michael once. "Please, make yourself comfortable." Michael finds a chair near the back, opens his notebook, sits quietly. For 40 minutes Fischbeck teaches. He is, whatever else he is, an extraordinary teacher, clear, precise. The way he explains the relationship between harmonic tension and emotional experience, a student could listen to that for hours and still find new things in it. Michael listens with the same attention he gives to everything that interests him, which is total. He writes things in his notebook, not many things, a few words here and there, a symbol, a number. One of the students, a young German woman named Petra, plays a passage from Schumann. She's technically excellent. The phrasing is a little cautious, a little safe. Fischbeck listens with his eyes closed. When she finishes, he says, "You're protecting yourself. You're playing the notes correctly, which is important, but you're not trusting what the notes want to do. You're holding the reins too tight." Petra nods, plays it again. This time, something opens up slightly. "Better," Fischbeck says. "Now you're listening to the music instead of monitoring it." From the back of the room, Michael says quietly, "It's the space between the phrases." Silence. Everyone turns to look at him. Fischbeck's expression is unreadable. "I'm sorry?" "Where she's holding back," Michael says. "It's in the space between the phrases. She's arriving at the rest and then immediately bracing for the next phrase." But Schumann wanted something to live in that space. He wrote the space on purpose. Petra looks at Michael. Then at Fischbeck. Fischbeck says nothing for a moment. Then he says, with careful neutrality, "That's an interesting observation. Though I'm curious how someone who works primarily in rhythm-based music recognizes the function of silence in a romantic composition." The room is still. The students feel the edge in it. Michael holds Fishbeck's gaze, says silence works the same way in every kind of music. It's not a rest. It's a held breath. Fishbeck studies him for a moment longer than is comfortable. Then he turns back to the class and continues. But something has shifted. The students can feel it. Something is being measured. An hour passes. The session winds down. Students begin gathering their things. Fishbeck walks toward Michael. His hands are behind his back. His posture is the posture of a man who has decided something. He says, "You play piano." Not a question. "Yes," Michael says. "How long?" "Since I was about 12. Seriously, I mean. Formal study." "With whom?" Michael names 2 teachers. Both of them serious people. One of them Fishbeck knows by reputation. His eyebrows move slightly. "And you've continued?" "Every week. Whatever city I'm in." Fishbeck is quiet. Then he does something none of the students expected. He gestures toward the piano, the same gesture he uses with his masterclass students. Precise, purposeful, no theatricality. "Play something," he says. It is not an invitation. It is not a challenge either. It is what it would be if Fishbeck said it to Petra or to any of the others. An instruction, a request made between musicians. Michael closes his notebook, stands, walks to the bench. He doesn't explain what he's going to play, doesn't announce it. He sits, adjusts the bench by exactly half an inch, places his hands in his lap for a moment, and goes still. The students who haven't left yet stop leaving. They feel it, that specific quality of attention that gathers in a room when something real is about to happen. What Michael plays is not something anyone in that room recognizes. It is not classical in the formal sense. It moves through classical structures. The architecture is there, the harmonic logic, the voice leading, but it pulls from somewhere else too. From gospel, from the blues. From something that doesn't have a name. The left hand lays a foundation that is steady but not rigid, like something breathing. The right hand carries a melody that keeps arriving somewhere unexpected and then making that unexpected place feel inevitable. It is a composition. Original, his own. It lasts about 4 minutes. When he finishes, he lifts his hands. The sound fades. The room doesn't move. Petra has tears on her face and looks mildly embarrassed about it. Fishbeck stands very still near the window. His hands are no longer behind his back. They are at his sides. His expression is the expression of a man doing rapid internal work. Revising. Recalculating. He says nothing for almost 30 seconds. Then he says, "How long did it take you to write that?" Michael says, "It's not finished yet." "How long so far?" "About 3 months. On and off." Fishbeck nods slowly. He walks to the piano. Not to the keys, just closer to it. The way you move towards something you want to understand better. He says the resolution in the second section. You avoid the expected landing. Michael says, "The expected landing felt like a full stop. I wanted a comma." Fishbeck almost smiles. It doesn't quite reach his face, but it gets close. He says, "That's Schumann's problem, that you identified in Petra's playing." "I know," Michael says. Fishbeck pulls a chair close to the piano. Sits down facing Michael across the bench. This is something he does with students he takes seriously. The students in the room recognize the posture. He says, "Why have you never spoken publicly about your classical training?" Michael says, "Because it's not part of the story people want from me." "What story do they want?" "You know what story they want." Fishbeck is quiet. Then he says, "Yes. I suppose I've been telling a version of that story myself. About what you are." Michael doesn't respond to this, doesn't need to. Fishbeck says, "The piece you just played, the harmonic language in the middle section, where did that come from?" Michael says, "Gospel. My grandmother used to take me to church. The piano player there did something with the chord changes that I spent years trying to understand. I finally started to get it maybe 5-6 years ago." "Gospel," Fishbeck repeats, not dismissively, thoughtfully, like a man filing something under a different category than where he'd been keeping it. He says, "Sit with me for a moment." He turns to the piano, plays a passage, 12 bars, something fluid and searching. Then he stops and looks at Michael. Michael plays a response, not an imitation, a conversation, something that takes what Fishbeck offered and asks a question back. Fishbeck plays again, builds on what Michael returned. They do this for 15 minutes. No one in the room moves. The students have all found walls to lean on, and they're leaning on them with the concentration of people watching something they don't want to look away from. It is not a competition. It is nothing like what Fishbeck intended when he looked up and saw Michael walk through the door. It is two musicians, talking in the only language that doesn't lie. When they stop, there is no dramatic ending. Fishbeck simply lifts his hands and leans back and exhales. He says, "You hid this." Michael says, "I kept it private." "Why?" Michael says, "Because some things are yours. Not the world's, not the industry's, yours. You keep them private so they stay true." Fishbeck is quiet for a long moment. Then he says something that surprises everyone in the room, himself possibly included. He says, "I've been wrong about this, about what I thought was on each side of the line I drew." Michael says it's an easy line to draw. That doesn't make it right. "No," Michael says, "it doesn't." The students file out slowly, reluctantly. David, who has been standing near the door for the past 40 minutes trying to look invisible, catches Michael's eye and gives him a look that says he has no words. Fishbeck walks Michael to the door. Before Michael steps out, Fishbeck says, "The piece you played, the unfinished one. I'd like to hear it when it's done." Michael says, "I'll let you know." He does. 18 months later, he sends Fishbeck a recording, a studio version, fully produced, with an orchestra and vocals added. It becomes one of the deeper cuts on a later album, not a single. Not something most people know by name, but musicians find it. They always find the ones that are built on something real. Fishbeck plays that recording for his master classes for years. Not to show his students what pop music can do. To show them what music does when a person refuses to let the world tell them which parts of themselves are allowed to exist. He never tells them the full story of that night, just plays the recording, and then says, "Listen to what's underneath." Someone built that from the ground up over 20 years and never once did it for an audience. That's what dedication looks like when it's real.
Petra, the young German pianist, goes on to have a serious concert career. She keeps one reminder from that year in Chicago. A single line she wrote in her practice journal the morning after that session in Fishbeck's salon. The silence between the phrases is a held breath. Don't brace for the next phrase. Let something live in the space. She doesn't write whose words those were. She doesn't need to. She knows whose hands were on the piano when she understood it. Most people never knew this version of Michael Jackson existed. The one who sat with worn notebooks full of chord symbols in hotel rooms at 2 a.m. The one who found pianos in empty lobbies and practiced things he'd never perform for anyone. The one who kept something private and true in the middle of the most public life in the world. He knew who he was. He didn't need the world to know it too. But some nights in a small salon in Chicago, with 12 students and one old pianist who had expected to confirm what he already believed, the private thing becomes visible, and what happens next is never what anyone expects. Not humiliation, not victory. Just two people discovering that the wall between them was never actually there. That's what 4 minutes at a piano can do. Not prove a point, not win an argument, just dissolve something that had no reason to exist in the first place. Who are you keeping walls around that don't need to be there, and what would happen if you sat down and just played?